All right, Coach, we'll kind of start off. News coming out this afternoon. You're going to be the next head coach at Northwest Missouri State. What's the excitement level you have to take over that program?
Yeah, obviously, excitement level is really high. Getting a chance to work at a high level, basketball program that has proven itself here, not just even in the recent history, but just in the long term history with Coach McCollum and Coach Tapmeyer, and the people over at Northwest are incredible people, and that goes from the city to the administration to obviously the athletic part of it. So my family and I couldn't be more excited to get rolling.
When you saw the opportunity come open, was that a job that you had maybe penciled or circled as an opportunity, maybe because you have ties to the MIAA, ties to the region, obviously too. Just what stood out about that opportunity that when you saw it, maybe presented itself?
Yeah, when it opened up, it was one that's like, man, this is a big time opportunity, obviously, for the reasons that you said, from the history of what the school does, the league and the region both, as it pertains to the D2, whether it's whoever's come out of that region a lot has been pretty successful in the national tournament. So, um, the other thing that kind of fits for us in our crew is Maryville. Both my wife and I are from Western Kansas and grew up in a town of about 12,000 people. So, even just being on campus interviewing stuff, there were certainly a lot of things from the community side of it. Just even the school systems that felt right for sure.
Your career, looking at that a little bit, playing at Mid American Nazarene, obviously, and then getting the chance, high school level, then with Coach Shipman over there at Washburn for a few years, but going back to Mid American Nazarene, but then starting a program from the ground, the very ground level. I
Yeah.
guess what lured you to that opportunity out there at Ottawa, and what was, I guess, what did lead to that as maybe a good place for you to be?
Well, it worked out both ways. One, it's really hard. Like there's probably some stories I could tell that you wouldn't believe. Like, no way, that was how it really was at the beginning. From our dorms being in a hotel with some bunk beds, 15 minutes one way, and our practices happening at a local high school at 5 a.m., 15 minutes the other. But the great thing about that was the community of coaches and people that started that thing, and just how supportive we were of each other. And knowing how hard it was individually, and sharing that as a group of coaches, and I really felt that even on my visit to Northwest, with all the athletic offices being on the same floor, and just the camaraderie, and the hashtag that they use, or that I should say we use, once a Bearcat, always a Bearcat, and the things that tied together there. The other thing though that job allowed me to do though as a first time head coach, was not necessarily have to win 30 games in the first year. I was able to learn on the fly, as a spot that allowed me that didn't necessarily punish some of the things that it maybe would as a new time or a first time head coach. So it worked out really well both ways. The athletic director was a guy that I worked with before, which is a lot of the time, the way that these things happen. So it's bittersweet, moving on to the next stop, because you invest so much in a place, and you build relationships, not only in your locker room, but in the community and your local church, and stuff like that. And so while the excitement to get something started, and especially at a place like Northwest is certainly off the charts, there's always a little bit of bitterness, from having to walk away or leave something behind.
Just looking at the last 4 years, I guess that you've had out there at Ottawa. COVID year, what it was for everybody, right? I mean, that was just kind of a
Yeah.
go just on the move constantly. Never know what's going to happen, but the NAIA runs and everything along the way too. Because I pulled up the semifinal round game from last season over in Kansas City. Just what has made it so special to get that program to where it is? Because that's not easy to go from the very ground floor that quickly to like you did to be a top team, not just in your conference, but in the country too.
I think that's the most thing about that most of us would say in coaching is just the journey and the stories that are told through the relationships that are built. And so the last 4 years, we've got a chance to play in a national tournament to end our season. And you mentioned the one with the Final Four, which was a special run. the margins are always so small. This year our year ends in the first round in an overtime game, and a play could go either way. In our Final Four run, we had a game early in the tournament where we hit a three at the buzzer to advance. And so um, that's what makes it fun as a fan. It's what'll drive you crazy as a coach, because we want to control everything. But to your question, to be able to take a team, to take a program and grow it, and then have it end at a national tournament, where you're sitting in a locker room and you're looking around a group of guys, that have been together since, September to March, and had meals together and hotel stays and bus rides and thrilling victories and devastating defeats and all the things that go along with that. Um, Certainly it's the most fun to end each one of those stories in a national tournament, and cutting down nets. But the people in the journey is what's awesome about it. And so even when we finished that Final Four run, I was able to reach out to guys that had been in our program in year two, that were in that high school practicing, or early mornings, or that had to lay the foundation for it. And while they didn't get to celebrate in the locker room with us, in the Final Four game, I wanted to include them and make them feel like they'd been a part, because they absolutely had.
Just off, hearing that answer, I kind of maybe tell a little bit of your philosophy when it comes to basketball. That's not just a game. It's not just what happens for 40 minutes. Is that something you've always kind of instilled? Is that basketball, yes, wins, losses, that's great, important, but it's the life after basketball. It's being a part of
Yeah.
that journey and everything too.
Well, if you win, they listen to you more and they believe you more. So it's certainly a part of it. It can't be absent the winning. Um, but that was what was instilled in me. And you mentioned that I got to work with Coach Chipman at Washburn in the MIAA, but I got to play for and work with Coach Rocky Lamar, who was a legend at Mid American Nazarene and won a national title himself. And he modeled that. He was. I'll give him a hard time here. He wasn't necessarily beating people with his X and O's, but he had a group of guys that believed in him and that played really, really hard for each other. Obviously, were talented in their own right, but that was the foundation of what he set. And what I've taken from my time with him more than anything is that it is the relationship side of it. So that if you don't happen to be the team that gets to win on the very last game of the year, you can still have a chance to call parts of the season a success. And those guys come back and still feel like a part of the program, and you get to celebrate weddings and births of children and job promotions. And it's not always the positives either. Sometimes it's the get together and hug when, someone loses a dad or a job or something like that. And you just have a group of people that, because of your experience collegiately and some of the things that you did, whether you talked to them yesterday, you haven't talked to them in 2 years or 5 years, you still know that they're always there and the other side of the phone. And I think, from every account that I've told, that's something that's going to be a fit. I mean, there's going to be things that I do that are the same. There's going to be things that I do that are different, certainly from previous coaching staffs. But one thing that would remain true is just the bonds that happen inside of a team.
You go from taking over a program, well, starting a program basically, not just taking over a program, now to a team that's been one of the perennial top teams in college basketball. What excites you about this different, I guess, challenge? Because you went from the
Yeah.
one challenge of starting one, now you got a team that's a program that's been well known for years now.
Well, to plug that, I mean, they won 5 out of 6, and with the one miss, the COVID year, where I think they had a one loss in that season, and by all accounts were certainly the favorite to go on and win it that year. And so, um, you know, people have asked, like, man, how do you follow a guy like Coach Mack? He's arguably the greatest Division II basketball coach, without even with recency bias, maybe in the history of the game. Like, the guy's just incredible. But with some of the things that we've battled through, with we didn't have a gym and lack of scholarship and different things like that. If the biggest problem that I have in a program is that it's won too much in the past, I'll gladly embrace that as a problem, because we can. It's not too hard to show people, how we turn that into a positive. And that goes back to just the administration, all the way, from President Tatum to Andy, the AD, and all the coaches inside of there. The university gives you an opportunity to be successful, and that's really all any coach can ask for.
And I'm sure you're going to probably hear that quite a bit here for the next several months. Is how do you follow that run? I mean, to be honest, I don't know if anybody follows that run just because
Yeah,
that's a and I've talked to several people like there's some luck in that run, right? I mean, you have
sure.
shots go your way, shots that don't, but what is going to be a Coach Keeley looking program run if that makes
Yeah,
sense?
and not to knock, but like I'm not sure Ben could stay here for 7 years and make the same run in the next 7 years that he just made in the past seven, and he's the best, at that. But as far as it pertains to my vision and how that looks, um, out here we've kind of gotten known, for our style of play, which is play fast. We use it certainly as a play style where we want to get up and down the floor. It's something I'm comfortable with. It's something that I know. That is, a little bit opposite when you look at possessions per game of the way that they've played in the past. But we're trying to accomplish the same things. We're trying to be efficient in how we score the basketball. We're trying to have high points per possession the same way. We're just doing it over the course of more possessions. The other thing that ties into that, though, is we turn it into our FAST is an acronym. I think that's the right word for faithful, assertive, selfless, and tough. And that's our culture. Everyone has a version of that culture, and everyone has the words on the board or in the locker room. We try to talk about it every day. We try to act it out every day, whether it's a drill or an individual conversation, team film, whatever it is. But our teams, my core of my personality is to play hard and to compete. And so everything will flow from that, whether it's our defensive scheme or our offensive execution or whatever it is. The guys that we want to recruit, are going to fit inside of those things, and we think that's the way that we get it done.
It's not technically coming home, but I mean, it's coming home to the Midwest and the region. What does that part mean to you and your family to, like you said, Western Kansas, but it's still all kind of the same region. Just what does that mean to you
Yeah,
guys?
and Western Kansas is where I grew up, but I spent a decade plus in Kansas City,
Right.
or the Kansas City area, which is certainly really close. So lots of friends around, lots of fans. We got to experience that during our national tournament runs when we were playing in municipal, and people were just coming back to see us play and catch meals and all that stuff. But a lot of friends, a lot of family within the a drivable radius. Both so that they can come see us and we can come see them, and it's a helpful sell, for my family because we've certainly got some roots down out here, and so to just pack up and go anywhere might have been tough, but go somewhere that we have some familiarity, both in family and friends, is definitely going to ease that process.
I'll get you out of here on this last question. Obviously, it's probably going to be a fast-paced few weeks, few months. Personally, getting everything moved over, but also professionally getting things going. Just what's the next few weeks look like for you when you start looking at, all right, what's this team going to look like in 24, 25?
Yeah, that's a question I don't fully know the answer to here, a few hours onto the job, but that's number one is roster construction. I know the guys that are in the locker room now. If Coach Max recruited them, they are good basketball players and they are character people. So roster retention, to the best that we can do. We know in the transfer age, that poses some new challenges, but to just give support to the guys that are there that have committed to the program, to let them know who we are and so that they can make a quick decision. And we hope the decision to remain with the program and then, build out the gaps and, whether that ends up being local high school guys or transfers of our own. I don't know the answer to that fully because I don't know exactly the shape of it, but a lot of times, we've seen even at the major colleges like Arkansas recently with Cal or some other spots, anytime there's a coaching change, it's a complete start over. And I think because of the character and the professionalism of the program that predates me, obviously, I don't expect that. I expect some guys to be able to go on the move, maybe, in places that make sense to them. But I do not expect it to be a complete overhaul. And I think that speaks, again, volumes to the program that's already in place.